Well, a little more than an hour ago, a group of conservative lawmakers held a Capitol Hill news conference demanding a DOJ investigation into a recent rally by Common Cause. This bills itself as a nonpartisan group, but it has a history of being opposed to right-wing groups. That rally produced death threats against Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, his wife Ginny, as well as Justice Antonin Scalia and arguably others, including Chief Justice John Roberts. Here's just a sample of some of the more explosive things that were said at the rally.
What do you say we do with Clarence Thomas after we impeach him? Bad things. Like what?
I don't know, because I'm all about peace, but I would say torture.
Nice.
What do we do with him? String him up. And his wife, too. Let's get rid of Ginny. Yeah.
String him up, eh?
String him up.
No coke,
Thomas, his wife, Scalia, Roberts.
Joining me now, the man spearheading this effort, this push to have the DOJ investigate these folks, and that's Texas Congressman Louie Gohmert, live from Capitol Hill. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. So
it's always good to be with you, Megyn.
It's a pleasure. So let me ask you, why are you doing this? Aren't these just morons? Do you actually take those people as giving actual legitimate threats against the Supreme Court?
Well, Megyn, after the shooting of Gabby Giffords, we can't take anything just on face value. I mean, and just blow it off. We realize, as the left-wing groups have been saying, we've got to cut down the partisan, violent rhetoric. And that's exactly what this left-wing group is doing. And it is interesting. Common Cause, you know, they didn't say a word about a leader of a national leader of the ACLU, not one word about the Solicitor General sitting in on cases that arose under her boss, the guy that hired her, the president.
You're speaking of Justice Elena Kagan having been the Solicitor General of the U.S. and now on the Supreme Court. And there's a question about whether she should recuse herself. Just so I don't give our viewers a background, there's a question about whether she should step down from the health care ruling. Yeah. Meantime, this group, Common Cause, wants Scalia and Thomas to recuse themselves from the health care ruling or other rulings. Go ahead.
And they bring a guy like Van Jones as the nonpartisan person to rally these people and fire them up and get them out there in the street saying they want to lynch Clarence Thomas and kill his wife. This kind of thing is outrageous. So one of the things, we not only want the whole incident looked into to see if they violated the law, but you've got a group, Common Cause, here that is very common in their cause of always being left-wing and always going after mainstream people and people on the right. It is time that the Justice Department looked into their nonprofit, not-for-profit status, because clearly, you know, Megyn, they were using this rally and all of this rhetoric to raise money. Donate now, make a gift now, and talking about all the noise they made going after Scalia and Thomas and after Thomas's wife. I mean, this is outrageous. Now, having been a state judge and chief justice, I know about death threats, but when it starts against your family, that's when it gets really serious, and that's what they're doing here. It's outrageous.
But let me ask you, because in your letter to the Department of Justice, you write, it certainly seems that these partisan racial slurs and calls for violence were facilitated by the purported nonpartisan nonprofit organization, meaning Common Cause. The truth is, you know, they were facilitated by a guy, a videographer, who contributes to BigGovernment.com, who was sort of egging them on. Now, that's fine. He can do what he wants to do, and they can respond however they want to respond. I'm not saying it's this guy's fault who egged them on. He didn't force them to say what they said. But how do you pin it on Common Cause as opposed to, you know, the actual individuals who happen to attend the rally? How do you pin it on the group?
Because look at their rhetoric in their letters about how wrong and terrible these things. They gin this whole emotional play up. So when somebody with a camera says, what should we do with these people? Nobody with a camera has said, let's say to lynch him. The appropriate response is, we're going to keep raising this issue and that kind of thing without resorting to violence. But the problem is the rhetoric of the Van Jones leadership in Common Cause has just elevated the violence and the rhetoric. They're part of this, and you can't blame it on a cameraman.
Sir, I'm a little short on time. Just so
Sure.
our viewers know, we ran an excerpt, but these are some of the comments that were made. Okay, so it's not like this guy who was with the videographer had only a couple to choose from. One guy said, "Let's put Thomas Clarence back in the field. He's a dumb S." We'll leave it at that. Said that he needs to be tortured. Said string him up. His wife too. Let's get rid of Ginny. You heard that. As for Justice Scalia, string him up. One woman said, I don't want to be on camera saying this, but what does she want to do with Clarence Thomas? Hang him. I mean, it was repeated, you know, the comments.
Megyn, they sent out emails specifically to these people. They sent out the notices to get these specific people out there. They knew what they were getting. They knew who they were going after.
Okay, but look at this woman. This is the woman who said string him up. You really think this woman poses a threat to Justice Thomas?
Did you think that the guy that shot Gabby posed a threat to her? Apparently, they didn't think so before he shot her.
Well, it's a good point.
You never know.
What's going to happen? What do you think the Department of Justice is going to do?
Well, hopefully they'll change their ways and quit aiding and abetting this kind of organization and actually take a firm look at it. The fact that we have an attorney general that turns a blind eye to certain groups that he agrees with, even when they may be violating the law, doesn't mean that we don't keep standing up for what's right and try to push that the law be followed.
Okay.
We saw what happened in November when people see that's not happening.
Understood. Congressman, thank you so much. I want to tell our viewers that
Thanks,
the Common
Megyn.
Cause has reacted to this by saying it's laughable, and they say that they have a deep commitment to civil rights and to promoting decency and civility. Our thanks to the Congressman for his coming on.